Welcome to the Athletic Supporters, the 2,487th podcast on the internet. But the first I'd ask the question, can 5 friends prove that they know anything about sports that they think they're experts in? This is how it works. We talk about sports, and when we want to change the topic, you'll hear this. Now let's meet the guys.
Hi, I'm Kevin Shea.
Kevin's written 20 hockey books, so naturally Kevin's going to lead the conversation about hockey.
Hi, I'm Kim Cook.
Kim is going to do a deep dive on baseball analytics because, well, that's what he does.
Hi, I'm Tim Burgess.
Could you tell that Tim was from England? Since he grew up in Europe, he's going to teach us all about the exotic sports, such as F1, cricket, and rugby.
Hi, I'm Ian Marchant.
Ian's a Montreal Canadiens fan, but since the Canadiens suck this year, Ian's going to enlighten us all about things soccer. And I'm Steve Waxman. I bounced a basketball against the wall of my parents' apartment when I was 10, and that bit of mischief gave birth to a lifelong passion. Well, folks, welcome to episode 2 of the Athletic Supporters, and we have a little bit of business that we need to take care of right away. I'm going to have to change the name of the podcast to The New Athletic Supporters because I found out after we posted that there is already a podcast called The Athletic Supporters. Now, granted, they haven't posted anything since 2014, but they're out there as The Athletic Supporters, and I don't want to infringe on their space. Now, I would have changed the name to The Athletic Supporters UK, but since Tim's not on the show this week, I didn't think that would be appropriate.
What about the well-traveled athletic supporters?
Well, actually, given the photo that we're using as the artwork for the podcast, I actually was considering the old athletic supporters or the sweaty athletic supporters.
All of those will work.
Absolutely. Now,
Athletic Supporters UK is brilliant, by the way.
Thank you very much, and perhaps by episode 3, that's what we'll be. Now Tim is not available because he's out of town, and I just wanted to say that we had a response from one of our listeners, a woman named Andrea, who was so smitten by Tim's voice that she said that she would listen to him document the moth migration. And it just so happens that Tim is in the UK right now covering the international moth migration. So, Andrea, listen up for future episodes, and we will be covering that event. So I want to jump right into this by getting a story out there for a lot of people that don't already know it. So, Kevin, I'm going to turn this over to you. Can you tell us the story of your tattoo?
God. Well, I guess I can if we really need to.
Well, there are people that don't know the story already, so let's give her.
I had thought about a tattoo for a long time, but I knew that it would bother my mother, so I waited. My dad had a tattoo that he got when he was in the Army, so at least there was some in the family that way. But I thought for a long time, and I knew what I wanted to get. There was only one thing. It's my passion, and it would be a Toronto Maple Leaf. And there's an old expression that this guy loves the Toronto Maple Leaf so much he's got a tattoo on his ass. Well, that's just what I decided I was going to do. So I didn't know much about tattoos, but I went down to the Danforth and decided that I was going to get one. Walked in, and they said, "Oh yeah, we can take care of that, sir." And I showed him a picture of what I wanted to put on and the exact size. And he said, "Okay, that's great. We'll make an appointment and we'll do it in 2 weeks' time." I said, "Well, no, I'd like it this afternoon." He said, "Oh, no, we don't do that, because if you're drunk or if you have second thoughts, there's no turning back." I said, "Well, at the time, I can't remember how old I was, but I'm guessing 35 or something like that. And I don't drink, so we're okay to go." He said, No, it's a rule we have here." Fair enough. So I drove further down towards the downtown area of Toronto and found a place on the Danforth called Captain Popeye's Tattoo Parlor, I think it was. And I went in, and I knew I was going to be okay, because I walked in and Captain Popeye was greasing and oiling his motorcycle in the lobby, and his wife was watching TV on the couch. And I said, "Listen, I'd like to get a tattoo, but I'd like to get it today." And he said, well, I don't look too effing busy, do I? I said, okay. So I came in and showed him what I wanted. And he said, okay, let's get to work. I hope you don't want it in blue, because blue ink is really difficult to clean out of my needle. I said, well, it's got to be blue, for goodness sake. It's a Toronto Maple Leaf tattoo. So, okay. So it was time to go, and he had everything prepared and ready to go. And I turned to his wife and said, excuse me, I'm going to have to lower my trousers. And she said, believe me, you should see the things that my husband has tattooed. Your little white ass isn't going to bother me at all. I said, okay, fair enough. So I dropped one side of my pants and leaned over, and oh my God, did it hurt. It hurt so badly. And she was watching Roger Rabbit at the time, and all I could do was bite my finger while I was watching Jessica Rabbit. It seemed to help for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway, so he continued on, and I was about to say, look, no more, please, no, I can't take any more. And he said, good, we're all done, great. So I breathed a great sigh of relief, and then he yelled to his wife, hey, we got any Band-Aids? And she said, no, you were supposed to get them. And he said, oh, okay, not to worry. So we just got one of those awful brown paper towels you get from restrooms in garages and gas stations and things, and masking tape on either side. Actually, it was packing tape on either side, and that's what he used to cover my tattoo, and said, well, you're all set to go. Put a little Vaseline on it tonight, and you'll be good as gold. So I did exactly that. And then Kim and Steve and I went to the gym the next morning. And I don't know if you guys were there at that time, but I think you were. If not, you've heard the story far too many times. But we went to the gym, as we were quite often want to do. And so there we are, and we work out, time for a shower afterwards. And I never think too much about it. And I'm showering up, and the man beside me says, excuse me, sir. And I said, yeah. He says, I'd like to talk to you about your Nevis. I said, my Nevis? My Nevis. I wonder if he's saying penis. No, it's Nevis. He said, no, your Nevis. I'm concerned about your Nevis. I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. And he said, well, I'm a doctor, and you have a birthmark on your behind that I think might be cancerous. I said, oh, no. That's my new tattoo. And he put his glasses on, amidst the soap, and said, oh my God, it is. And he called over his buddy. Hey, Bertie, Fred, get over here. Check out this. The guy's got a Maple Leaf tattooed on his ass. Well, as if I wasn't self-conscious enough being naked in the shower, I was even more so now, as I had a bevy of people staring at my behind. And that's the tattoo story. There we are.
Now we got a perfect segue into talking about the Leafs. You want to talk about the success that the Matthew, Marner, and Bunting line has had?
Okay, let me just take my pants down first. Oh, no, we're good. Yeah, what a line. First of all, they're the driving force behind this team right now. And with good reason. I mean, Matthews is now the goal-scoring leader for the franchise with 58 goals. He's now up over 100 points too, which puts him in pretty hallowed ground with Daryl Sittler and Doug Gilmour of the past years. He's at 102 points. Mitch Marner is the leading scorer since January 1st of 2022. He's now 34 goals, and we never thought of him too much as a goal scorer. We thought of him more as a playmaker, but in fact, he's got 34 goals now. He's been shooting more. He's got 60 assists, and so he's got 94 points. So if things go well, there's a good chance that he can cross that 100-point plateau as well. And then Bunting, it's an odd scenario, but he didn't play enough games to qualify as anything but a rookie this year. So right now, with his 23 goals and 40 assists, he's got 63 points, and he's the leading rookie scorer in the National Hockey League this year. And there's a real nice synergy between the three. In generic terms, we've got Matthews, the sniper, Marner, the playmaker, and Bunting, the guy who goes into the dirty corners and in front of the net to get the puck to these two guys. So it's an amazing line doing amazing things for a team that now has 50 wins, the highest this Toronto Maple Leafs franchise has ever had, and the highest point total they've ever had too, 106. So lots of really good things right now as we head into the playoffs. And the only downside, if I might bring one thing up, is that Matthews sat out Sunday's game. He's got some minor repairs day to day anyway, one way or another. Whether he's got wrist injury again, or whether there's something else going on, we don't know. But it certainly is concerning to lose your leading scorer. But I think we're going to be just fine, even if we don't see him play against the Philadelphia Flyers.
Kev, so the three of them are north of 260 points. Any idea what the points record for three line mates is? Or is that a little bit too obscure?
Well, it's not obscure. I just don't know. I mean, I would have to think that Gilmore, Andrechuk, whoever else was on their line probably were right up there at the very top two. And then going way back to the 70s, again, I don't know the totals, but the Sittler, Errol Thompson, Lanny McDonald line would have to be right up there as well. But I just don't know totals at this point, but I would have to think they would be in that area. I don't think that the modern day Leaf line that we've just been talking about has broken that record at this point, but I could be mistaken.
Okay. And can I ask you about Mark Giordano?
Absolutely. What an addition to the team he's been. It worked out way better than I think anybody expected. We knew he was going to be very solid, but he brings that much more. So he brings a veteran presence, first of all. He was the Norris Trophy winner a few years back. So he was the best defenseman in the league. So he certainly knows how to play. He's seen every scenario one way or another through the years as well. He's a physical presence at times. He's got a great first pass, getting the puck out of the blue line, out of the defensive zone, across the blue line. So he brings a lot of really, really good things, and he can play with different scenarios. He can play with the TJ Brodies, who he played with in Calgary once upon a time, but he's been paired with Liljegren, and we've seen a real jump in Liljegren's play as well. And I think it's because having Giordano there allows Liljegren to step up and be a little bit more of an offensive force, or not be quite so afraid to make a mistake because we've got number 55 covering your behind that way too. So there's lots of good things that Giordano brings to the table, brings to the ice for the Maple Leafs, and it's been an outstanding acquisition for Toronto.
He's preternaturally calm. He never varies from moment to moment with the look on his face. He's just steady constantly.
Yeah, he's very much so. I mean, his path to the National Hockey League is quite bizarre. I mean, he wasn't drafted. He went and played in Russia and then came back and played in the National Hockey League. So by the time he joined the Calgary Flames of the NHL, he was already a little bit older than his peers who had joined the NHL when they were 19, 20, 21 years old. He was already about 24 years old. But again, he's because of his veteran presence, he's seen every scenario one way or another. He's been with good teams, he's been with bad teams, he's been with blue line mates who, were struggling a little bit, and he's been the steady force that you mentioned as well. So it's really nice to see him back there, and he certainly has fit into the team. He's a real favorite back there from what I'm understanding as well.
So, Ian, are there enough games left in the season for the return of Carey Price to get the Canadians to sneak into the playoffs?
Highly unlikely. Currently sitting in last place. Carey came back, of course, after 284 days. Hey, Carey's back. We lost 3-0. He was good, not stellar, but not surprising. He hasn't played in 284 days or longer. But Montreal, they're just lacking something. I don't know what it is. The next night we played the Capitals, lost 8-4. Carey wasn't in goal. They put in the Montembeault, he's the youngest of all of the goalies currently on the team. I don't know his exact age, but I just know that my guess is he might be 20. He's had some good games, had some tough games, but we're still last. The one bit of good news is Nick Suzuki, that little star, has not missed a game yet this season. In fact, has never missed a game in his NHL career, which is pretty incredible. when you think, particularly with Montreal's team, where he's one of the captains and is playing every other shift, it seems, working his butt off. Incredibly, he hasn't been injured because as we know in this game, more and more at this level, the hits are a lot harder than they used to be, it seems, and there's a real risk that they could get injured. But yeah, so I think it's time I've written this season off for the Habs. I think I'm pretty safe in doing that. That the playoffs are not likely.
Okay.
Better times ahead, Ian. I gotta love the record under Martin St. Louis. They've got every chance to get back into the playoffs next year, I think.
Kim, I'm with you. What we've been through so far this year has been tough with all those young guys. Without Carey, things will get settled down again once we get through training camp and start the next season. It all bodes well for the future. Montembeau's a good little goalie. It's just he's been thrown into the fire when he really should just be tossing a little piece of wood into to stoke the fire.
So I've watched the team play occasionally, but certainly when they played the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they're a very, very fine team. And without knowing the record, just watching the game played, you'd think that they were very comparable or very close in talent as well. So you're right. The future bodes very well for the Montreal Canadiens. And we can only hope that, they're officially out now, but we can only hope that as the next season and two move forward, that we see what this team has started to develop. It's an exciting time, actually, without
there's a lot of young guys. There's no doubt about it. And we just have no superstars on the offensive side right now to really lead us and take us to that level. So we're gonna have to wait. You're right, totally right, Kev.
No, that's the toughest thing, to go from a team that struggles to try and get over that barrier where you've got to go from a team that struggles to a team that's okay to a team that's good, and then hope that as you get better, you're still able to move the pieces around to become a great team eventually. Because that's one of the things that's really odd about team sports in North America, especially, is excuse me, the better you are, the harder it is to get better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with those teams that like Montreal is right now, what's the secret sauce? We don't know. But all of a sudden, there's going to be one little thing that happens, and holy shit! Now they're playing like we always thought they could.
Yeah. Kim, let's talk about the first 10 days of baseball. What have you seen? What have you liked?
Well, baseball at this time of year is tough from a weather point of view, and especially this year when we're on a tail end, hopefully, of one of the worst winters we've had in a while. There were a bunch of games postponed today due to inclement weather, and there's been snow at ballparks. And even when they do play the games, it's not much fun playing in 40-degree weather. So that's been a thing, at least in the northern part of the U.S. But there's about 11 days and 11 games into the season, so about 1/16. And there's our Jays nominally in first place in the East with a 6-4 record. That translates to about 97 wins. So if they can finish the season with 97 wins, they're certainly in the playoffs, and maybe they win the East with that count. We shall see. The big concerns, in a week and a half, they've lost 3 players to the IL already. It's not good. With Danny Jansen, Teoscar Hernandez, and now Hyun-Jin Ryu. That's 3 big components. Hopefully those guys are not out for long, because they can't continue to sustain losses of that sort. And I've got to talk about Vladdy, of course. A 5 home run week, unbelievable, especially the 3 home run night. Then the next night, the golden sombrero, and then he hits a home run. Then he goes 0 for 4. So Vladdy had an incredible week, but very much an up and down week. But loving every minute of it, as Loverboy once said.
Well, Kim, I'm just curious though, with all the hype around the Blue Jays going into the season, is 96 wins a good season?
Oh yeah, 96 wins is still a tremendous season. That's first place, second place. It's definitely the playoffs. I mean, we'd all like 100. It's a nice, big, round, fat number. You look at National League West last year, the Dodgers won 107 and the Giants won 106. That was incredible. I'm not certain that's happened ever, and certainly not in a very long time. But yeah, 96 is still, especially Steve, remembering how brutally competitive the AL East is. And 4 out of those 5 teams, including the Jays, they're just going to pound each other all year. They play each other 19 times. It's going to be hard to get beyond 96 for that reason alone.
Yeah, Kev?
You happy with third base, Kim?
Yeah, I mean, Chapman's been everything that we expected him to be defensively. The last couple of games, there have been some signs that his bat has been starting to heat up, just in small ways. He looked a little out of sorts early on. He was swinging at pitches out of the zone. That actually brings up a good point overall, Kev. Right now, pitchers are way ahead of hitters. There are scores of big time major league hitters off to very poor starts. Matt's one of them. Hopefully, there's better times ahead.
So I want to talk a little bit about basketball. I want to talk about, because obviously we're paying attention to this Raptors Philly series, and game 1, it was interesting because I thought after game 1, I felt like everything that I have said about the Raptors this year was illustrated in game 1, that they're not deep enough, that they don't have someone to go to when their star players are not scoring 35 to 40 points. Philly had Tyrese Maxey, who scored, I think, 38 points, 36 or 38 points, while Joel Embiid was only scoring 19. In order to be even close to an elite team, you need to sort of have that third player on your team that you can count on all of the time. And one of the things I think that was illustrated in the game with how strong Philadelphia came out of the blocks is you have to remember, I think, or consider that the Raptors are, in a sense, the Phillies' kryptonite when it comes to playoffs. So I think that the 76ers have so much more motivation going into this series, because I think that getting past Toronto, which I don't think they think is going to be that difficult, though there's the psychological barrier that getting past Toronto is a big deal for the 76ers, given, what happened to them back in 2019. But they also, getting to the second and third round is important to them because they have been underachieving for so many years during the Joel Embiid, process, as it were. And I don't, we're taping this tonight while they're playing game 2. I don't know what's going on. I'm not paying attention right now. But again, it's like there's, when you're playing a team that has so much in its back pocket with regards to animosity, then you're dealing, you're playing with fire. Kev?
So Ian talked about the magnitude of Carey Price's injuries. Kim mentioned the magnitude of the Blue Jays injuries early in the season. I mentioned Austin Matthews with the Leafs. Can you just address the injury situation with the Raptors and what losing Scotty Barnes is going to mean to, whether it be this series or moving forward, should that come to pass?
Well, the biggest drag about losing Scotty isn't so much the impact that it will have on the team on whether or not they win or lose. It's the impact that they have on him. That this is the first time that he's been in the playoffs, and this being on the floor in the playoffs is a really important learning process for any young player, no matter how they end up performing. And yes, he's a really strong defensive player. He is a good and getting better offensive player. And yes, they do lose out with him not being on the floor offensively, but I think more to the point, what they're losing out is him growing as a rookie. Kimmer?
Good point.
Watching the Raptors have their heads handed to them, or their hats handed to them the other night, got me thinking about the whole topic of the playoffs in any sport, and how brutal it is, and how everything just gets ramped up, and how hard it is to make your way through the playoffs. Of course, I was thinking about the Leafs and what's around the corner for them. I don't have anything particularly profound here to say, just to make the observation. And the Raps handled Philadelphia very easily during the year for the most part, but it's a whole different thing now. And Steve, you made a very good point about Philadelphia's revenge motive that I hadn't even considered from 2018.
Yeah, well, that game ended. Joel Embiid cried. I mean, and they've been, it's what, 3 years later, 4 years, 3 years later now, and they have to keep hearing from people. You can't, Toronto was looking for you. Could be, you're the team that Toronto wanted to play in the playoffs because you're the one team that they felt confident they could beat.
Wax, I've got it. Toronto Raptors are to the 76ers what the Bruins are to the Leafs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, even more so if the Raptors can actually pull off a win on the season in this series. Okay, I want to move this over to soccer. And Ian, with all due respect, you need to make this interesting for those of us that do not follow soccer. And right now, soccer goes over our heads. And we hope over the course of this podcast, not just this episode, that we become soccer FANAS fans. I can't spell.
Aficionados.
Make it interesting for us.
I'm going to try to. I mean, it was FA Cup semifinals this weekend.
Okay, well, now, first of all, what does that mean? What does FA Cup mean?
I was going to say, just to give you, the FA Cup is the Football Association, and the FA Cup is a tournament that is played both with every professional men's team in England and every professional women's team in England, although they're obviously two separate tournaments. And the Premier League teams, they're left out to the later rounds, but the initial rounds could be, there was a classic third round game a number of years ago where Liverpool, who we all know, Liverpool, one of the great big teams in English soccer, one of the great teams in Champions League soccer as well, they were playing a team who was a bunch of plasters that had formed a amateur football team and had worked their way up and gotten through to the third round, ended up playing Liverpool. Not surprisingly, they lost. But the great thing about this is that, there's a bunch of an amateur team that can end up playing, if they get high enough in the rounds, against one of those big teams. Well, so it's now worked itself down to, we now know who is going to be playing in the final. Like I say, in both the Women's FA Cup, which this year Chelsea beat Arsenal in one semifinal and Man City beat West Ham in the other. So it's Chelsea, Man City in the women's final. And in the men's, Liverpool beat Man City, who we talked about last week. They were tied at the top of the Premier League last year. Last week, they drew when they played each other. Well, Liverpool beat them in this FA Cup, which is important. And Chelsea has beat Crystal Palace, so it's now Liverpool-Chelsea in the men's FA Cup. Next, as we go through this podcast, hopefully over time, I'll be able to really extrapolate more and explain more about the FA Cup, because it's a very, very interesting concept and great to see the way it comes together. Other than that, last week, one of the interesting things in the Premier League, Cristiano Ronaldo, who we all know, one of the two superstars of the sport, scored his 60th hat trick in the game.
Wow.
A new record, which we all know soccer, it's a 2-1 win, a 1-0 win type of game. 60 of those hat tricks. And also, on the other hand, some other stuff that's not as important. We'll end it on a high note with Cristiano Ronaldo.
So, listen, guys, I want to go back to Ian here for a second. I want to kind of wrap this up with a little bit of maybe an F1 teaser. So you wanted to talk a bit about how the Russian sanctions affect Team Haas at F1. Just give us a little taste, and we'll talk about this kind of stuff more in depth in the next episode.
Of course. Haas is one of the less well-performing teams. It's an American team, as it's known. One of its main financial supporters is a Russian man by the name of Dmitry Mazepin. Thanks to Dmitry's billions, his son Nikita has been the number 2 driver for Haas. But due to the Russian sanctions, Haas has had all their money taken away. Mr. Mazepin is wanting his $8 million back, which Haas is basically giving him the big finger. And of course, Nikita, who is, when you think about, there's only 20 teams and there's 2 drivers a team in the Formula One. If you get a seat there, you got to be a pretty freaking hot driver. I'm afraid that young man isn't quite. But hey, look what Dad's billions can do. So that's all the F1 news this week. But it's like the trouble is with Haas is the Günther Steiner, the team manager, is one of the great personalities in Formula One. And if you watch the Formula One stuff on Netflix, Günther gets a lot of time, and he's hilarious. And he's just wonderful. But unfortunately, he's stuck on a team where, he's got a Russian sponsor whose kid's taking one of the seats because of all the money they're getting to keep the team floating. And it's just a shame.
Wow.
Yeah. You know what? Kevin watched Drives to Survive, and it's everything that Leafs behind the scenes thing would have liked to have been.
We had some.
Sorry, was there a Leafs behind the scenes thing?
What's that? What's it called? Leafs Forever?
I forget what it was now.
There you go. That's how memorable
it was. Actually very well done, but it was.
Yeah.
We already knew the ending before the show had aired, so it had its unfortunate ending. We had visitors over the weekend, this past weekend, and they talked at length about, I forget the name of the show now. You just mentioned it, but the F1 show,
Drive to Survive,
and how they all love it and hang on it and were surprised that I hadn't seen it. So I've got to make it appointment viewing for me for this podcast for our friend Tim Burgess, but also so I have some stature in the family as well. So there we are.
Even Sharon watched it with me and got into it. It's a really good series, and it doesn't, you don't get hung up if you're not a fan of sport, but it gives you some real background about personalities and the various players. It's really pretty damn good.
Very good.
All right. Well, Kim, have a great time in Barcelona. I will try not to get sunburned in Miami, and we'll all gather again together, let's say in 2 weeks. And hopefully a lot has happened in 2 weeks' time.
It'll be May, and the weather will be better.
The weather will be better, and the moth migration will be over, and Tim will be able to tell us all about it.
Yay!
Well, that's it for this episode of the podcast. If you made it this far, you can add a purple monkey to your sticker book. And let us know what you thought by leaving us a review, a nice 5-star rating, or sharing the podcast with all your friends. And if you want to hear more about what we think about sports stuff, click the subscribe button or ring the bell. Whatever floats your boat. And now you're a new athletic supporter too.